Hey, I'm 9, and in today's video, I'm walking you through how to create this retro game-inspired heart animation using TouchDesigner. It's low-key a lot more simple to create than it looks, so whether you're a seasoned TouchDesigner pro or you've barely opened the app, I got you. I'm breaking things down step by step, nice and clear. But if you're impatient like me, you can speed this up to 2x. All the project files and links you'll need are in the description below, so grab those before we dive in. If you love retro aesthetics and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and follow me on TikTok and Instagram for sneak peeks and extras. Let's begin. Let's start by getting a heart model. The file I used is linked below. Just ensure you download this as a .obj file. Once downloaded, drag it into your network, aka your screen for newer TouchDesigner users. Name this heart exterior. This is the outer heart, which we'll be using as kind of like a cage. Duplicate that and call the second one interior light. This will be the glowing, animated core inside the heart. We'll come back to that in a sec. Going back to the exterior heart, as you can see it is not facing the right direction. Let's rotate it real quick by connecting a transform SOP. Before I mess with my parameters, this layout is bothering me, so I'm also going to change the way my network looks real quick. This part's optional so you can skip it, but it can make your workspace way easier to navigate. In the upper left corner of TouchDesigner, click on Pane Layout. I like choosing the layout that has one big pane on the left and two smaller panes on the right. Here's how I set it up. On the left, I keep the network editor so I can build and organize all my operators. On the bottom right, I open the parameter window. You can make it appear by pressing P on your keyboard. On the top right, I use that space to view the final output, so I can see what our animation looks like as we go. You can hover your mouse over that box and click Alt-4, or can click on the downwards arrow and select Top Viewer. Again, not required, but it keeps things nice and tidy while we build this heart animation. Now then, let us go back to our transform SOP and translate it down the y-axis by -0.8, rotating it on the x-axis by -90, and we'll want to make this way smaller to 0.12. Then, connect this to a null SOP. Now let's start rendering this so we actually see something. Connect a geocomp to your null SOP. Add in a camera comp so we can see what we're working with here, and we'll use a line material to get that wireframe look. Just drag and drop the line 1 material to the Geo 1 and click Palm material to assign it. Then, let's make the lines look less chunky and more funky by making the width near 1.9 and width far 1.8. I use these color values but use whatever, it's a light reddish pinkish color. Feel free to copy what I have written on screen. Now let's add in a render top so we can compile all of this into something we can actually see. To make the background black, connect this to a transform top. Set the last parameter to 1 to add a black background, turn on comp over background color, and finish with 2 null tops. Trust me, this'll make sense later. Finally, on null 3, click that little blue viewer dot and here's what we got so far. I'm going to hide the rendered view where our networks are because it looks disgusting. Just right-click and go to Display and deselect Background Tops. Much better. Now let's make this portion of the animation the interior light. Luckily, this is simple. Go back to the interior light heart and add a transform SOP so we can move it to be centered in the heart, rotate it so it's not facing the wrong direction, and make it way smaller so it shows up inside the heart. Translate it down on the y-axis by -0.02, rotate it on the x-axis by -90 degrees, and uniform scale this down to 0.01. Super tiny, I know. To animate this, just connect a noise SOP. To change up the movement, set the period to 0.52 and frequency to 7. Connect this to a null SOP to clean things up, and I'm just doing to move this down a little because this setup is cluttered and stressing me out a bit. Connect your null SOP to a geometry comp so we can include this in what we're rendering. Now I believe in saving time where we can, so we're not going to create a brand new line but rather we'll just reuse, reduce, and recycle the current one. Just drag line 1 to the new geometry you created aka Geo 2 and assign that material again by clicking Palm material. We now need to make sure that our rendered view knows to include both the heart and the little light thingy inside, so that when we start adding colors and whatnot, these colors show up on both objects and we see everything and all as well. So just make sure under the Render 1 node, where it says Geometry, type in Geo1 and Geo2. And that's it for our geometry. Yay! All we have left is to change up the colors and give it that retro aesthetic look. I'm going to hide all these SOPs to make my computer's life easier, aka run smoother, hahaha. I'll do this by dragging to select all these and clicking the circle icon. Bye. We're now going to create that glowing effect. We'll first start by creating a basic feedback loop. If you're newer to TouchDesigner, you can think of it as a way to make our heart and the light essentially light up and look all glowy. I don't know a better way to explain it than that, so seasoned veterans, please cut me some slack. Before the transform one top, add a composite top. We'll use this to layer the glowing effect onto the current heart and light insight. We'll add in one more null top afterwards and rename this to feedback end. That way, we know when our feedback loop ends. To create the feedback loop, add this from render 1. To make it have a glowy blur effect, we'll add in a luma blur to that. Just make sure you plug in the feedback loop one more time, so there should be 2 lines, if not this won't work. In other words, both luma blur inputs should be from the feedback node, and finally, we'll add in a level top to even out the lighting since this is about to be super bright. Connect that to the composite top and set the operation to add. This is basically like saying, hey, add in these shapes with this lighting effect we just created so we get the 2 together. I don't know a better way to explain it than that. To make the feedback loop work, drag the composite top into the feedback top so the loop connects. Look how bright that is. We're going to add in a keyboard in Chop, and beginners, I'll explain why we do this in a sec. Click on the diamond icon to set viewer active and drag that to your feedback loop on top of the pulse button. Now, when you click the number 1 on your keyboard, it'll reset the loop. Beginners, we do this because if you were to make any changes to any of these settings, we'd need to click the feedback loop and click the pulse button. But ain't nobody got time for that, which is why we added in that keyboard in Chop. That way, all we need to do is press a button. Makes it easier to reset the loop and see your changes. Less effort. To make this less blinding, click on the level top and under the post tab, reduce the opacity. I set it to 0.663, but again the world is your oyster. Play around with what you like best. We'll also adjust the glowy blur effect by clicking on Luma Blur and changing the black width to 46 and the white width to 26. Beautiful. To make this look even better, I'm going to add in a feedback edge right here after the feedback end null. Then, connect this to the transform top. Friendly reminder to click 1 to reset the feedback loop. Wow, look at that. We'll first set the source tint color to this dirty, almost washed out pink. You can copy the numbers you see on screen. Then set the edge color to 0.367, blur feedback to 3, feedback black level to 0.06, and dry/wet mix to 0.946. Again, press 1 to reset the loop. To get the glowing white effect on the edges, almost like a pulsing glow, add in an LFO chop. We can use this to change the source gain in the feedback edge, which will basically manipulate the exterior brightness. Set the LFO type to ramp, frequency to 0.72, offset to 0.4, and amplitude to 0.2. I found that the source gain number looked best between around 0.4 and 0.6, and these settings ensure it stays between it. If you want it to be brighter, or more dramatic with getting light and dark, mess with these settings. Click the diamond icon to set viewer active and drag it to your feedback edge on top of source gain. Click chop reference so we can always refer to this, and if we for example decide to change our minds and make it even brighter by changing the settings in the LFO, we'll be able to see those changes reflected in the final product. Finally, to wrap this up, let's make this actually look like a video game. To get that retro pixelated effect, go to the null 2 top and add in. This is what we'll use to pixelate all our hard work. We'll also want to add in a composite top so we can layer our current heart with the pixelated version. Link the limit to the composite top and make sure the operation is set to heat. This gives it that really oversaturated and slightly overexposed red look. Finally, go to the Limit 1 node and go to the Quantize tab. Under Quantize Position, set this to ceiling and the position step to 0.005 to pixelate things. You can even take this a step further by adding in a VCR effect, which is what I did. You can download the overlay I used in the description below. Drag and drop that file into your network, or use a movie file in Top. Go to Common and set the resolution to Fit Resolution. Leave it as is. The last thing we'll do is change the resolution. Connect it to a Lens Distort top, which we will come back to later. Next, create a transform top so we can resize things if need be. Add in a null after Comp 2 and add in a composite top after so we can add the VCR overlay to our heart animation. Make sure Transformation 1 is the first input under Input OP, so our VCR overlay goes on top of the heart. And here's the magic, adding in a Lens Distort top. Insert that between the new composite top you added and null 3. Click on Layout and set the Post Transform to Custom. Set the scale to 0.6 and leave the other value as 1. As you can see, this isn't the most flattering angle for this heart. Let's fix the sizing by doing two things. First, going to our Render 1 node and setting the resolution to 1280 by 1100. And then going to our Move File In node, which in other words is what we drag and dropped for those who didn't insert that operator, and we'll do the same there. Go to Common and set the resolution to 1280 by 1100. And that's it. I can do a deep dive tutorial on cool effects you can do on TouchDesigner with these overlays to spruce up your art, so let me know, and have more retro-inspired tutorials in the pipeline. I hope this helped, and please let me know what you think. This is my first tutorial and I definitely want to make future videos more interesting and less boring. Hope to see you in the next one.